Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 2 of season 3. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And once again, serving as producer, Alex Patakis over in New York. How's it going, Alex?
Going well. What's up, guys?
Not bad. And coming back to us from North Carolina, it is Brian Donley. How's it going, Brian?
Great. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, not a problem. How's I know you've been working on trying to get some people for meetups out there in North Carolina. How's that going so far?
Really well. We actually had our first meetup of the season. We had a really good turnout. We had a couple new faces, which was really exciting. People had heard about us through various interactions across the web, and we got, honestly, a record number of attendees.
Awesome.
If only it had a slightly better result for everybody, it would have been a little better. But it was great to see some old faces and new.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that game first. There is a ton to go into this episode. Who knows how long this will last. We'll try and keep it in a decent time frame. But we'll start off, started off strong, really tailed off. I feel bad for the players. 2-1 loss to Leeds. Paul, I'll let you start.
The game, to me, it's a little tricky to kind of pinpoint what went wrong, because it was an exceptional start to score within a quick amount of time, and we looked threatening, and it still felt that no matter taking that lead, I'd really like us to kick on and grab it by the scruff of their neck and really choke a team down and pile on the pressure from that point. And that really didn't seem to happen. And my biggest issue, I think, as the first half progressed, was that it was impossible for the ball to stick in the final third, that we had some breakaways. We put some good moves together. But when we're playing with effectively 4 attackers, or what should be, they've really got to do a better job of putting the opposition on the back foot. And I would say probably all of the front 4, apart from Podence, who scored, probably only got a 6 out of 10. Though there were some good flashes and some good moves, but when we've got that type of lineup, it's crucial that one of those forward players is either the man of the match or a contender to be the man of the match, because it shows they're having some genuine impact on the game. It really should be 2 guys chipping in with a couple of goals and a couple of assists each, and leading from the front and defending from the front. So that was a fault for me. And as the first half progressed, it seemed one-way traffic through the middle, just because it wasn't sticking up top. I thought, by and large, the centre-back pairing to certainly begin with in the first half were coping with it pretty well. So any high balls were dealt with relatively easily, apart from if they came near Sarr to begin with. He was a bit shaky. But really, what was frustrating for me was that it was our own downfall, and it was Ait-Nouri messing about in the box for their goal, and that was a little gut punch in terms of a momentum swinger. Cut those types of mistakes out, and that's where you start to build a really strong team, put in a decent performance. It may have been sour grapes on my part, or being less impartial, but I didn't think Leeds were all that. I didn't think we were under crazy amounts of pressure that Sarr was pulling off save after save. It didn't seem like that. It seemed they had control of the possession. And importantly, when the second half started, that first 25 minutes, we looked awesome. And it was exactly how that formation should really start to function, especially away from home. But the kicker there is we don't have anyone to put the ball in the back of the net. And Wang had a decent game. Again, 6, maybe 7 with an assist. But really, when you have that amount of the ball, especially away from home, you've got to do something with it. So disappointing on the face of it. I think both goals could have been prevented. Were there some green shoots to build on? Possibly, but I'd have liked to have kicked off the season with a win, and I still think it's points drop for definite.
Brian, I saw you shaking your head when Paul said that Leeds didn't really, it's not like they were controlling the game and really just pelting Saw there in the second half. What did you see there?
Yeah, on their side, I will just say, I'm not going to glow on Leeds, but shout to USMNT. Brendan Aronson was everywhere in that part of the game when Leeds really did take momentum away. And was it probably about minute 25 through 45, and then in the second half as well. So him and Jack Harrison were really moving well and getting in a lot of really good spots that made their attack work and cause a lot of problems on our wingbacks. I kind of would definitely echo some of the things that Paul was saying on the center back pairing. I thought looked solid. Wingback play definitely was not very good on either side. Unfortunately, Johnny looked sluggish. Aït-Nouri was trying to get cute too often. I was very impressed with Huang, though. That was the type of movements we've been looking to see from him. And he actually had a nice first touch a number of times, which felt really good. But yeah, it was just the main thing was we're generating a lot of opportunities and not generating any real shots. And I think that was really the downfall. Is it kind of felt like we were doing good things, but not getting into a point where we're really troubling Meslier. And yeah, that definitely made it so that there were some opportunities lost, and that felt like a winnable game when, especially after going up 1-0 in the 6th minute. But even when we were really holding on to it in the second half, it felt like, oh, this would be a winnable game. And as soon as that second goal went in for Leeds, you could just tell all the air went out and everyone was exhausted, and there was nothing Lodge could do to put people in from the bench. And at that point, you're like, oh, it's over, and just everyone kind of folded up shop at that point.
Yeah, you mentioned the exhaustion. It was pretty bad because all of the jerseys on the team went from being old gold to dark orange, just with the amount of sweat that was coming. And it's like, well, yeah, now Premier League, you can make 5 subs. At this rate, I don't see that ever happening in a Wolves game. And when you only make 1 sub in the game and it's coming on the field as a 19-year-old with the number 77, that's not good. That's not good. That's why I say I feel bad for the players, man. And they didn't give up. They were still trying, but when Leeds has made 4 subs and Wolves still have their original 11 out there, and it's hot over there right now by England standards. I mean, that's tough, Paul.
Definitely. I think that was the most telling thing. And I think it was in one of the forums that I picked it up after the game, and one of the guys was talking about the English rugby union coach, either current or the one previously. And he used to call his subs finishers, or the analogy for baseball is a closer. So it's that player that you can bring on and really clamp down on a game defensively, or take it to the next level offensively and really do something special. And as it stands, and Saturday was the prime example, there just wasn't anyone that he could turn to on the bench that could impact a game in either way. So hopefully that's being corrected. Hopefully by the end of the transfer window, we'll see. But it's a definite cause for concern that we still need to bulk that bench out based on the number of subs that we've got at our disposal.
Brian, was it odd seeing Ryan Aït-Nouri, who you could arguably say was Wolves' best player in the preseason, just get eaten alive by Brendan Aronson, an American? Like that to me was the most stunning part of the game. Is Aït-Nouri looked awful. And I don't know if it's because Cucurella goes to Chelsea, so now, well, maybe Man City's going to turn his eyes to him and he feels a little pressure. I don't know what was going on in that game.
Yeah, I guess especially he clamped down people. He was a good defender. He was a much better defender than everybody thought last year. and have that attacking intent. So he was looking like the complete package in preseason. And yeah, he looked, I was like, lost isn't the right word. It looked like he was just trying to do a bunch of like little things. He was just trying to get cute a couple of times. And that's what led to the first goal. He was trying to flick out instead of just booting it. And then I think by the game wore on, he just got frustrated, and then it just made it worse. But yeah, that was probably one of the more poor performances we've seen from him, even since last season.
It was funny because, my Twitter feed, I follow a lot of Wolves accounts and U.S. men's national team accounts. So it was a very difference of opinion there on that second goal.
I think they should have given it to Aronson. He was in the absolute right spot and made a very nice run. And I would say that cross from Bamford was right on the money. It was pretty picture perfect. So he would have scored either way, whether Inori got his toe on it or not. They should just give the kid the credit.
Yeah. Paul better be worried about Brendan Aronson flying down that right side in the World Cup.
Yeah, our left-hand side probably is not as strong as our right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys as frustrated with Dendoncker as I was the whole game? Paul can tell you at the place where we were at, I was cussing every 5 minutes Dendonker's name.
I wasn't. I actually thought I think he did the job of a number 6 very well, but he was trying to play the role of a number 8. So he was breaking up play. He was kind of controlling midfield, bullying people off the ball, intercepting, making some nice passes from that kind of middle third. But yeah, as soon as he got into the opposition box, it was kind of curtains. And I think the shot that he put on, which would have been right at halftime, I don't think it was a bad shot. People were saying that it was, oh yeah, that's a sitter, he should have put it in. He hit it low and hard in the goalie's foot who was flying at him. So I think that he did a good job as a 6.
I tend to agree. I think he did well in the aspects of breaking up the play, some cover on the flanks for the fullbacks as well. And I would agree that he did a good job as a number 6. But really, when we've got Neves in that double pivot, we need someone to do a good job as a number 8. And it would have helped so much to help build the pressure if one of those players is able to take the ball and beat a man and progress it forward from the midfield. And Donk has got assets defensively, but he's not got that in his locker. And to the extent of the chance, we can say that it was a good save, which it was, and he couldn't have done much different in the position that we was in. But he had that, and I think one of the corners was his, which was a header. I think either pulled off a good save or just went over. Donk gets himself in those positions so many times every game, and we used to see him score some goals, and it just seems to disappear. We'll get one occasionally now, but for the positions he gets himself in, if he could add goal scoring, it would be phenomenal. But for whatever reason, we just don't see it often enough.
I just have no trust in him when he's in the final third. When he's got the ball, it's, I have no trust that it's going to go in. I would be, well, and here's the problem now. With Moutinho out, we don't even know how long. I mean, Dendoncker and Neves, they're in the lineup. Like, that's the way it is. I mean, did you hear anything, Paul? Do we know Moutinho's injury? Because I know they were saying, like, could be 2 months, and then Lodge is saying could be 2 days. I don't know.
Yeah, there was speculation initially, and then Lodge tended to play it down in the post-match presser. And they've started to be pretty quiet on updates as far as injury goes. So it might be a little while, maybe toward the end of the week, until we have something formal appear on the website pretty much out of the blue that says, he's out for a length of time, and gives an update on the others that are hurt. So yeah, nothing yet in terms of how long he's out for.
How do you feel the Moutinho's injury is going to affect the team, Brian?
Oh, it's kind of one of the few guys who couldn't get hurt. Like we have literally 3 midfielders, and we're trying to play in a 2 to 3 midfield system. So, yeah, that's terrible, and I hope we can solve that in the next 3 weeks to get a real quality, ideally a quality 8. But there was one of the few guys who couldn't get hurt. It was him or Neves, and remember that was the second minute when Neves got his heel clipped and he went down for about 5 minutes. I was petrified. Like, oh, 2 minutes into the season, we're done.
Yeah. Well, Brian, how'd you like the formation play overall, though?
4-2-3-1.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was good. Yeah, I liked having that extra, attacking player to kind of keep things moving. I mean, I think given the people we had, we couldn't really have done anything different other than maybe a 5-2-3 if you put Coady out there instead. But I think given who we were playing and what we were trying to do, I think it was definitely a good choice.
How do you feel, Paul?
Yeah, I think there was enough in there to give some positives. And I think, as Brian touched upon, it wasn't like we weren't creating any chances. It was just there was some good interplay, and it was coming to a shot from the edge of the box or a little farther out. And on those situations, it's either got to fly in or it's a scuff shot and it trickles back to the keeper. And again, we got in those positions a ton, and it was more the case of the latter, that it was a great move and then it petered out because the shot didn't really test him or it went wide or something. Like that piece of skill that Neto did with the drag back and through the 2 defenders, that would have been a monumental goal. But I think that petered out in just like a little bit of a scuff shot against the keeper. So it sometimes it's those fine margins, but it may need possibly looking at away from home, depending on the opposition. I do think it leaves us exposed a little if 2 or 3 players maybe aren't on their A game. I think it may need some tweaking based on how we line up at home. I'm quite looking forward to it. I think that it could be quite exciting and some good football.
Do you think the defenders are there for this to be a successful back four? I think communication, they kind of have to work on that. But talent-wise, do you think it's right?
I think so. I think even you can have the best preseason in the world, but when the level of opposition gets turned up a notch with league play, it's a new centre-back partnership. So the 2 centre-backs have got to get that understanding. They've got to get that understanding with the keeper and vice versa. I think Sarr looked probably as shaky as we've ever seen him on Saturday in terms of coming for balls. That one where he kind of controlled and tried to beat the player and lost possession and turned it over in his 6-yard box. So there's those elements too. So it will still be work in progress, but I think if you've got two big guys like Collins and Kilman, I think that stands us in good stead to handle the aerial battles that will come. And then even though we're under pressure and we could see it sometimes, you still saw when pressed, Kilman is so relaxed with the ball at his feet and so comfortable in bringing it out and dealing with it that way, that I think those are the types of qualities that we're going to need in a 4. So there were some mistakes for sure on Saturday, but I'm quietly confident that we've got a good solid back line going forwards.
So that was the breakdown of Leeds 2-1 loss. Now to what I'm sure everybody is tuning in for, and that is the madness that happened last week after our episode and then continued. This got really interesting with the transfer window all of a sudden. With obviously the big news is Goncalo Guedes. Thank you to him for telling us how to pronounce it on Wolves Twitter. Coming in, and that move seemed to happen like hours after the game. It was almost like a wake-up call, like, oh yeah, we probably should do something. This isn't just going to be a cakewalk to avoid relegation. How do you like the move for 27 million pounds, Paul?
I like it a lot. I think it's a statement of intent from somewhere. Either it's all been part of the master plan from the off, or it's some kind of reaction to the loss. I don't think so. I think it's probably been in play for a while, and it's been one of a number of moving pieces. But I do think that it's one of those stellar signings that gets you excited as a fan, and it's a really good investment. He's got a ton of potential. 5-year deal. It seems like a big play from the management team to get some players in of that higher quality. So I'm excited. I think from what I know about his performances and where he's going to be a good fit, I think it's a fantastic addition to the types of lineups that we can have at our disposal and we can roll out. So I don't see many negatives at it at all, to be honest.
How excited were you when you saw the news? And were you a little worried? Because all of a sudden it was like in a 30-minute span, we saw he was signing with Wolves, Newcastle, or Arsenal, Brian.
Oh yeah, I was very excited. Yeah, because to get someone of high quality, I think you really hit it right on the nail head, Paul. It felt like a statement of intent, putting a flag down, because Wolves Twitter has been getting really toxic over the last week or so. And it was just like a release valve. Everyone is going, oh, thank God they're actually going to get somebody in, and actually a first teamer, not some 18-year-old kid who's going to Grasshoppers. So I think this could be, I hope he'll be really good. I think he'll be really good. I don't know a ton about him, but from my limited Googling, it sounds like he's quite versatile and can play pretty much anywhere in that top 4 spot. So could provide good cover until Jimenez comes back as well, or slide over to the right wing. I'm sure we'll talk about this in a moment, but if that rumor about 40 million pounds for Morgan Gibbs-White's real, who could cover that until they reinvest that money? I think, but long term, I think it's gonna be really good.
This dovetails pretty well, actually, with one of our No Stupid questions this week. It's from Steve Young, and he asks where Guedes fits in with the lineup. Does he start to begin with? And an extension of that is that Wang looked like he tweaked a groin possibly on Saturday. So has there been any reports on his availability? So I think that flexibility for Guedes is a pretty big deal.
I worry about somebody starting, 5 days after they join the club. Just because, and it seems like Lodge's system is very much free flowing. So it's not just, hey, we're going to stick you in one position. You know how to play it. Let's go. I mean, it's a lot of movement. So I do worry that he wouldn't be able to start the first couple games, which again is why I wish these moves would have been made during the preseason so we could bed these people in. So now we kind of got to do it on the fly. I know he can play as a second striker. I do wonder how he would do up top, needing to do link up play and everything. I think where I think he could really thrive is in a 10 role.
I think potentially, I think it offers some whets the appetite to play him alongside Raul in that type of role. But then also, if you've got Neto one side, him the other, Raul in the centre as an out and out 4-3-3, as three genuine threats in attack, I think that bodes well as well.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this will be the one F word we can drop to keep it the PG-13. Go fuck off, Arsenal. You're not getting Neto. Like these guys, it reminded me a lot of when we signed Campana, and then all the Manchester United fans were like, "Oh, this means that we're getting, Raul Jimenez." No, we're allowed to have backups too. And I saw somebody that was like, "Well, why do you need Neto? You guys already have some wingers." And they're like, teams are allowed to have backups." Oh, really? Because you're acting like Wolves can't have backups because heaven forbid Guedes comes in. Well, that means Neto's gone. No. Now, if you
The way
give us
they set
80
up the
million,
team so far, they haven't proved that they're willing to have backups.
yeah, this is true. But it's just like, man, come on. Yeah, he signed through 2027. He's coming off an injury, so he's just rebuilding his value. You come with 80 million pounds, okay, now we'll talk. But no, you're not. They're like, oh, maybe we can get him for 30 or 40 million. No, go. I wanted to get in a fight with some Arsenal fans really
No,
bad. But then I was like, no.
Yeah. It leads you down dark paths when you get into any type of rivalry on the internet with supporters of the top four or Sky 6 that have no real username and vague photos and possibly come from Africa. Yeah, it's bad.
It's just very interesting the mindset of the big six, where they're like, oh, well, we can get anybody who we want. It must be nice. But with that said, there was a departure with Guedes coming in, and it's our favorite captain, Conor Coady. It sucks. I love the guy. I think he's one of the things that made me proud to be a Wolves fan, is seeing all the stuff online and the stuff he'd do in community and everything. Like, he was a great representation for that city, for that club. So it sucks to see him leave. However, I get it. He can only play in a back five. And we've been asking Fosun to back Lodge, and they do. And to do that, that means there's no spot for Coady. World Cup year coming up, Everton offered him minutes and everything. It makes sense. I hate to see it, Paul, but it was the right move, I think, for Coady.
Yeah, individually, it stacks up that he does need those minutes for the World Cup squad. And pleased is probably the wrong word, but probably the gentleman's agreement that allowed the club to give him those. I'm quite proud that they seem to reflect that type of loyalty to him in order to allow him to. They could have easily shut it down and said, no, we're not going to let you leave, and then that scuppers his probably last opportunity to feature in a major tournament. So as that stands, I hope he does well, apart from anything that impacts on our season. But to that extent, I'd have rather it have been an out-and-out sale rather than this. It will be some type of wishy-washy loan option. Is it option obligation? It's never clear. So to that extent, I'd have rather taken the cold hard cash if it was available. But then that comes down to the fact that it takes three things for a move to happen. The player's got to want to go, the selling team's got to want to sell, and then there's got to be a buying team. So if it turned out that it was only Everton that was genuinely in for him, and that was the only way that he was going to leave, then I just hope that we've been able to extract a decent loan fee, and there's something working that we don't know about that facilitates a smooth departure at the end. I don't for 1 minute want the scenario that's brought Traore back here and in effectively a state of limbo. That doesn't do anyone any favors if that turns out to be the case with Coady at the end of this season.
Paul, could you see him coming back if there's no obligation? Let's say the back four kind of tanks with Lodge and they get a new manager. Could you see Coady coming back at the end of the year and then trying to back five again?
I could do. Yeah, I could. but I think there's a lot of moving parts in order for that to happen. So that's a worst case scenario that I don't want to think about.
Yeah, right.
So and again, we've often talked about it. It's not like the five at the back can be this ultra defensive model, but is it just, have we as fans, have we got a little stale with it that, we just want something different and we want something more exciting? I think it's shown that whatever's happening, that it's going to, four at the back's going to be either revolutionary and it's going to be the best Wolves that we can imagine, or it's going to be the sword that Large falls on and it turns out to be his Achilles heel and leads to him falling out of a job. So I think there's a lot to happen in order to contemplate it, but I think professionally, I wouldn't rule it out if it came to whether he came back under the right circumstances.
Brian, you're a new fan like me. How weird is it going to be? It was already kind of weird not seeing him on the field, but how weird is it going to be not seeing him on the Wolves bench at all?
Yeah, or not seeing him as part of the presence of the media, like of the social media that comes out of Wolves, or like all the little videos of him doing cute stuff with kids and just him like yucking it up with fans. That's gonna be probably the hardest part of just not seeing that part, because he just genuinely seemed like a really great guy. Yeah, it's one of those things where I agree with Paul. It feels like he's earned the right to try to get more minutes. It's just a shame that couldn't happen here. Yeah, it's going to be strange.
We've got a couple of no stupid questions, obviously. That's a very prominent topic for this week. First up is Nick Raytar on Twitter, and he asks who takes the captain's armband now. Is it Neves? And that's something that that Danny Baltimore Wolves follows up on, and he assumes that it's Neves. But if that's the case, who's the new vice captain? Is it Moutinho? Is it Kilman?
See, this is where I get a little worried, because Neves, we still don't know. He could still be gone at the end of the month. And so I hate to just make him the out and out captain if we don't know if he's sticking around. Moutinho would be a good choice, but we also have to remember he's only got a year left. And so do you really want all of your leadership to be two guys that could be gone next summer? Don't you need like a long-term piece to be a leader? So I'm kind of thinking Saw should be in there. Maybe I think Neves right now has absolutely earned the captain's armband, and hopefully he's here for the whole season, signs a contract extension. But as far as the vice one, I'd want somebody who's here a little longer term. So I would think Saw, maybe Kilman, but he seems a little, quieter. Maybe go out on a limb and say Neto. Well, I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I do like the Kilman shout. I think he kind of seems like the quiet confidence type of leader. Like, you don't have to be loud and fiery to be a leader. Sometimes the quiet path is the best one. Saw would be fun. He'd probably have like all riding electric bikes around Wolverhampton and just being a bunch of maniacs. I don't know if that's a great idea.
And it does worry me. Like you said, there are different types of leaders. There are the non-vocal type. I'm still not really sure what Neves is, because so many people have deferred to Coady to be that vocal leader. We do need somebody to step it up and be that vocal leader. I hope it's Neves. But Saw would make the most sense if we're looking for, a vocal guy.
Yeah, on the pitch all the time too. So like, my first thought when you asked that question was Johnny, because he seems like he's pretty influential within the club. But he, when Semato's back, if Brian Donley can sort himself out, he'll probably playing half the time, give or take. So yeah, obviously need someone who's going to be there game in, game out.
It's a no-brainer for me, contingent on a contract. Get Neves after the window shuts, signed up on a 5-year extension, give him the armband, and that's done and dusted. And probably my vice captain would be a toss-up between Kilman. I think he got the armband for some minutes during pre-season, but I think they've probably looked to Collins as a centre-back that can come in and see the game from the back and I think they talked about his leadership qualities of being quite prominent. So I think they may have one eye on him. If Neves, for whatever reason, did depart, I think you would have to ultimately default it to Moutinho if he was going to be starting most of the time, just as a steady pair of hands, even if it was just for 12 months, that you've got the most experienced player in the whole squad. If he's starting without Neves, then it would be him for me.
It does sound like Neves is open to a contract extension, assuming there's a release clause in there, which makes me think, okay, that seems doable. Put 70, 80 million pound release clause in there, which I think is fair. And hopefully we get him signed up, and we'll see. Paul, where would you rate Conor Coady amongst your favorite Wolves captains throughout your fandom?
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, he's number one. And just for being the figurehead of where this team has come from, how it's evolved, where it's taken us to. And obviously it was disappointing to have a semi-final defeat at Wembley and then going into Europe. We've never experienced that, really. So having him as that player that led from the front with all of those games and where that team took us, I think just it makes him stand head and shoulders above everyone else. And I think legend is somewhat of a term that can be bandied around quite loosely, but I think for the complete package of where he came from, how he evolved his game, where he took us to on the pitch, I think he's definitely up there. Add onto that the character he was, what he's been able to do at an international level with Europe, and just how he carries himself and how he represented the club and the city has just been phenomenal. So I think as a complete package, if you're talking about legend, then he's right up there.
I'm looking forward to two things with Conor Coady in the future. I'm looking forward to 8 years from now when we're at a US meetup and he's the ambassador that comes. And I'm looking forward to him at some point, this could be 15, 20 years down the road, him being the skipper. I really think that'll happen at some point. What do you think?
I think
Brian?
probably a TV pundit. I think he would do really good at.
TV will be trying to snatch him up big time. Then is he a Roy Kent and just leaves during the middle of a broadcast?
I think so. I think he loves football that much that he'll be destined for a coaching role or potentially management.
So what's the record for coaches coming back to the team that they were big for? Like, how's that generally gone? I know that if I was going in that role, I'd be nervous about hurting the legacy I had with the fan base if things don't go well, because managers are hired to be fired. It's a thing that happens. You generally don't stick around for more than, especially soccer managers, don't stick around for more than 3 or 4 years usually.
Yeah, it's a little like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United, that he probably got that job thanks to jobs for the boys from his 10 years as a player at the club, and then certainly hung on to it for 12, probably 18 months longer than he should have done, probably based on sentimentality. So I think nowadays you've got to be really cutthroat when it comes to that, and they've genuinely got to be the best candidate for the role if one comes available.
Steven Gerrard is another good example there.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it does. We're bringing up a good topic though, which was brought up by Danny at Baltimore Wolves, and as an extension, he asks, what are some of the other universally loved departures from the modern era, a la Conor Coady, that is long-term servant and the fan base loves them, but also recognise that a change probably needs to happen? So I was really racking my brains with this one, because we've never been in a position that we've been able to nurture someone in this way for such a long period of time. So some minimal, not really even fit to lace boots when you compare it to Conor Coady, but Dave Edwards was kind of left, and everyone was, oh, okay, Dave Edwards, he ran around a lot, didn't really hurt anyone, wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. Okay, he goes with our blessings. A little further back, you're more looking at those players that had some type. There were more younger players that came through the ranks, like Robbie Keane left in a way that left more sour grapes, more for the fact that we didn't really get the value for money from him at the time. So that was more of an inevitable departure that you didn't really like, but you knew it had to happen. The one that stood out, couple stood out for me, again, similar to Keane, when Joleon Lescott left, he left under pretty good circumstances to Everton. He'd signed a contract extension the previous season, so he really did the club a solid by doing that and not leaving on a free. So the club were able to extract maximum value for him. And again, the fan base was kind of, well, we know it's going to happen. He goes with our blessing. There's not really anything that we can do with it. And the one that is a little similar, and you mentioned about could Coady come back in any way? The one that stood out, which similar, may be Jody Craddock. And this goes back to our time in the Championship, and he was often, depending on the coach, he was either a starter or he fell down the pecking order. He went away on loan, come back and had kind of a golden twilight to his career, and the fans started singing his name. So there's a little bit of Craddock in there as well, that someone that the fans didn't necessarily take to, but was one round, and then from that point onwards, he's still very much revered in glowing terms. So this is genuinely uncharted territory, Danny, because we've never had a figure like Coady.
Well, let's move on from Coady. And Brian, you mentioned it, Morgan Gibbs-White. Word came out, another bid was rejected today by Wolves. Nottingham Forest offered 25 million euros plus $17 million in add-ons for Gibbs-White, and Wolves said no. Now, the word was the add-ons were kind of ridiculous. It was, guaranteeing player of the year, Champions League, all that stuff. I feel like something's going to get done. I feel like at this point, if Forest was done, they would have walked away. What do you think is the magic number, Brian?
I was seeing rumors on Twitter. You never know what they are. But I saw
completely reliable.
Always reliable. I was seeing rumors on Twitter of people still banning about 40 million pounds. And if they really showed up with a piece of paper that said 40 million pounds, they'd have to break their hand off to bring that in, because I think he'll be good, but I don't think he'll be 40 million pounds good. Once you're probably at the true tipping point where I think it'd be a hard decision, and people would probably say, okay, yeah, is probably in that 35 range, even closer to 30. But I think anything below 30, there's just not enough guys around. We gotta keep him at that point, just because how you got to reinvest. But once you hit 40, I think you have to say yes.
What do you think, Paul?
Like the $1 million man said it best, doesn't he? Everybody's got a price.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'd be absolutely staggered if you got 40 million, even if it was 30 in add-ons. I'd certainly be dealing. If it was 35 cold hard cash and 5 million in add-ons, definitely still. So personally, I think he's going at some point. It will either be there's a valuation, there's a number on him, or they're gonna figure something out so that there's a path to him leaving. I can't. If it was done and dusted, we'd have known by now, and it's not going away. And I think it's a matter of when and not if now. I do think that whilst he's a good player, I think we could be playing an absolute masterstroke in terms of PR and publicity to keep on pushing back whatever Forest are doing to have that value ramped up, I'd be willing to bet that we'd be getting distinctly the most value possibly from that type of deal. And whilst he's good, he's not in that level of player category yet. And personally, I don't think he's got it in his locker to get there. I could be wrong, and he could be leaving. He could have a go to Forest and be one of the bigger fishes in a smaller pond, have a great season, and suddenly next season you're talking about 65, 75 million pound England international. I don't see it myself. I could be wrong, but I think if we get that offer and it's in that 35 to 40 ballpark, then it's got to be done.
Yeah, I think 30 is the magic number. I wonder if Forest, if they won't go above 25 up front, I wonder if Wolves can work out something like a buyback clause, or maybe just selling 80% of his rights, some kind of sell-on clause to kind of equal out. I'm with you, Paul. There's enough things that can happen. I don't think it's not like Wolves are asking for 100 and Nottingham Forest is offering like 15. Like it's close enough to get a deal. It is nice to not be the one that's being held hostage for once. So it's good to see, we're playing hardball with someone else. So we'll see. I say it's close enough and it should be an easy compromise, but then again, Wolves have let deals go by for $1 million or $2 million. So what do I know? Okay, I'm going to give you the 4 hot names, and I want you to rank them. I'll start with you, Brian, as to order that you would like them. And this is at the number 9. Do you want Hwang Ul-jo, Goncalo Ramos, Batshuayi? I am never going to be able to pronounce it. How do you pronounce it, Paul?
Batshuayi, personally,
Batshuayi.
but I've got no specifics in that either. So,
and Ben Breton Diaz. Rank those.
I'm not going to lie and say that I've watched really any of them. But
fair enough.
From my light Googling, when the rumors come up, I probably, from the reputation online, is probably Ramos, Diaz, Batshuayi, and Joe, in that order for me.
Paul, is that your order?
Mine's Ramos, Batshuayi, Wang the second. I'm going to call him Wang the second, like his royalty, and then Breton Diaz. What I really want, if they're talking about an attacker or they're talking about a number 9, it's definitely someone who's got to come in and try and knock the king off his perch in terms of Raul and be that number 9, or distinctly form a partnership with Fabio for years to come. So I think it's got to be that profile of signing.
See, and because of that, I kind of like Breton Diaz a little bit. I mean, obviously Ramos is number 1, which I don't think will get him unless it's going to be some kind of loan with a big loan fee. Batshuayi, it doesn't really it's just kind of an move for me. Hwang Ul-jo, it's just a cheaper version of the Hwang we have. So Diaz, I don't know. I just got a feeling that could be a really good signing.
I think the only thing that is not in his favour is how unproven he is at Premier League level, where if you're comparing him to Batshuayi, who's got the appearances, he's got the goals, then they're going to go with that more experience based on that. But is he going to be a long-term solution when he's 28? Not really. So I think that's what suggests with this signing that this needs to be more of a statement of intent when it comes to this number 9.
So the Batshuayi would really be the bridge for Fabio coming back. So yeah, it's really meant to be a short term, get someone in who can be competent until Raul is back, and then maybe understudy / sub when Raul is around, and then when Fabio comes back, then sort it out again later.
Yeah.
Just kind of kicking the can down the road.
So speaking of Fabio, he already has 3 goals in 4 games. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And everybody, there is no option to recall. We just all need to accept that and move on. He's not coming back this year. He won't be back until the summer. Here's what I want you to think about, Paul. What are the chances a big club comes in? Let's say Fabio scores 20, 25 goals, which is at this rate completely realistic. And a big club comes in with a 60 million pound offer for Fabio. What do you think the chances are that Fabio never plays in a Wolves jersey again if he has a big year on loan?
Potentially. I think if that's the case, you're kind of looking for those suitors that would be in the ballpark of having the finances and the ability to pick him up. I wouldn't think that any of the teams that are going to finish above us in the EPL would be in the market for that type of player, knowing that maybe he's got some worry about whether he can cut it in the Premier League. So does that open up a move to Spain potentially? But again, there's not, La Liga doesn't seem a stat with cash. So
I don't know. They make a
they make it up, don't they? Yeah.
They print money more than the US government at this point. Like,
that's right. So it could be, but do I think it could happen? Like, definitely, if they got that type of offer in, that Jeff Shee could breathe such a sigh of relief and think, shit, I spent 35 million on the kid and he looked like a busted flush, and all of a sudden this loan's turned him into a player that's nearly doubling his investment, then he'll be out the door as quick as he can say. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
Just remember, Chelsea has literally thrown away 130 million pounds between Lukaku and Werner.
True. Yeah.
So if they came in, they have a habit of paying for players with a lot of potential, then sending them off into places to be loaned out forever. If they came in with 50 million, Jeff Shee would definitely say yes. And I would not argue with that logic at all. Because to your point, Paul, like, we were worried that this was 35 million down the drain for Wolves, and it could be a coup.
Yeah, Chelsea's one that's I think checks all the boxes in terms of what you just outlined there. Their whole approach, that could be a fit in this type of scenario for definite.
I mean, Batshuayi, he's a Chelsea player. He hasn't played for him for 4 seasons.
Yeah,
they have like 50 guys on their roster just scattered throughout the world.
It's
nuts. Did you see the? I didn't see it in detail. I got no idea what happened. But did you see the Premier League 2 result where we played them tonight, and they beat us 7-1? So it shows the depth of their under 23s. So it's crazy, absolutely crazy. It's a total other stratosphere of teams and how they put these squads together. It really is.
I don't know. It's just, you look at Fabio hadn't proven anything and got 34 million. I feel like he goes out on loan, even though that league's not as good. He scores 20, 25 goals because of his name, even though he didn't really have a lot of success. I'm sure they'd just pin it on, well, Wolves were a disaster offensively and didn't have a good system for him. I don't know. I'd put the odds at 50-50 right now that he ever plays again for Wolves, which is why I would worry about, just when you're looking at striker options for this window, just going, just a short-term fix. Somebody that could pair with Fabio in the future. What if Fabio doesn't come back? I'd rather I'd rather be one of those teams that if we have the funds and have the ability, keep getting. Now, I don't want to see a bunch of 18-year-olds. Don't get me wrong. I would like to see guys in their 20s. I would really appreciate that if they could legally drink in the United States. That would be a plus. But, it's going to be interesting. One more rumor that was this was kind of talked about when Neves was being rumored for Barcelona. And his name's popping up again, Nico Gonzalez. I just got through saying I want guys that can legally drink in the US. He would not be it. But Paul, Nico Gonzalez looks pretty exciting when you see his stats and some of his highlights.
If you're buying him off of YouTube, then highlights, I'm all in. I'm sold. And if I spent any more than 4 letters for players on the back of my jersey, I'd be buying his name for my new away kit. So I think there's potential there for definite, and it could be someone that checks all of the boxes in terms of what we're looking for in a midfielder. But his age kind of gives you the somewhat flexibility in that we may be able to tempt him, that you're going to be in and around the first 11, but you've got Neves next to you, you've got Moutinho who's coming to the end of his career. Why don't you come in? You're going to definitely get some game time. You might not be starting every week, but you're going to be dovetailing with Moutinho and what have you. I think it could be a coup, and yeah, based on that highlight reel, I'm fully sold.
Oh, when his name was being mentioned with Neves during the summer, I was kind of like, but I had a few people come into me and were like, no, Nico's a legit guy. Look, he was starting for Barcelona. Here's what he was doing. And when you do delve deeper into it, it is somebody I think you can get excited for. Now, you never know what Barcelona's finances are. I mean, they tried to act like they were dead poor and then have spent the most money this transfer window. So especially with De Jong not wanting to go anywhere, maybe they need to sell him. What would the price be? Could you negotiate, get creative, saying like, give them a buyback clause or, just a percentage of the player to try and lower the cost? I don't know. I would at least like to get him on loan with an option, kind of like we did for Trincao, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. Is there any other rumors out there, Paul, that I may be forgetting?
I don't think so. If you are saying it is Collins, Guedes, a centre forward, and a centre midfielder, I would, and of all quality of the first two that come in, if you add players at a similar statement signings like those two in the remaining ones that we've got a need for, I think you could wrap it up as being a really good transfer window as it stands.
Would that be keeping Traore and Gibbs-White?
No, Gibbs-White I think would have to be gone for that. Traore, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
So good question, and one that Sean on Twitter, he DM'd us about, and he says, can you explain to me what's going on with Traore? I know he's back on loan to Barca last year. Now he's back, but is he really back? He's under contract, or is it just that Wolves have his rights? I'm kind of confused by the whole situation. So it's kind of...
Is he hurt? Is he hurt?
So they say so, and that was one that was mentioned in that statement that they released, that he won't be in contention until after the Spurs game. I think it was on the last formal thing that they released. But is that just to coincide that it's closer to the end of the transfer window? Is he being wrapped in cotton wool and until that time that there's a move in play, and that he's not going to feature, so that we don't risk jeopardizing anything in line with him potentially moving? But it really does feel like we're in the last chance saloon to get any type of money for him in in the final year of his contract coming to an end. So if it's 10 to 12 million, I think they're definitely selling him. If not, is he a really good fit in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3? Could he be great in a Laj's Benfica 4-4-2? So I genuinely don't know. It feels I keep on forgetting about Traore. It seems weird, and I still, for whatever reason, think that he's a deal that's waiting to be happen like Gibbs-White is. So for me, I'm not really factoring those two into the squad moving forward.
Yeah, with there being 5 subs, he should, if he's obviously healthy, but
yeah,
he would be playing every single game. There would never be any game that he's not playing. Like this Leeds game, once it hit that 70th minute, it was screaming for a player like Adama to come on.
Yeah.
For if they're only going to get 10 million, I hope they keep him, just let him go.
That's what I feel like. It's not worth the 10 million. You know, put him out there.
If you're going to get 18. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to get 18. Yeah.
I mean, look, guys, at risk of TMI here, thinking of Guedes and Neto and Adama on the field at the same time, that gets my nipples a little hard. I'm not going to lie. It's quite exciting.
There was not a.
There's your soundbite for this week, Alex.
But what did we say about having those types of players off the bench, those genuine game changers? Is there one player in the whole of the EPL that's more of a game changer than Adama Traore?
No.
You can't shoot either, but at least he's something.
Yeah, as long as you have somebody else that can shoot on there, that he can, actually find somebody in the box on a cross.
That's where your Brennan Diaz. Oh, there was one more rumor. What's his name? The guy, the striker from Strasbourg, who's like 6'6". Who's the name?
I can't even pronounce that guy's name. So
if there's any non-pronunciations, we just scrap that from the records. If we can't at least make an attempt at butchering it, that it's not a real rumor.
Yeah. But I can't forget
guy.
Yeah. There is one rumor that I see on Twitter a lot, and we should definitely not forget it. # Weston to Wolves.
I see it on Twitter all day long.
All the time. I know. Well, that's what I did point out when I was telling the Arsenal fans. I'm like, you're not going to get Neto. And I'm like, okay, look, this is coming from the same guy that talks about Weston McKennie to Wolves all the time. But still, stop being irrational. I'm rational with that.
I'm trying to raise the profile. I retweet it every time. Don't worry.
Yes.
To my actually, my followers up to 80.
We're fighting the good fight, guys. We're fighting the good fight. I will say this: if Wolves can also sign Nico Gonzalez and Ben Breton Diaz, and all it costs is Morgan Gibbs-White to go along with Collins and Guedes, I will start off this show by apologizing to Jeff Shee. I will actually have you write one too. We will all write apology letters to Jeff Shee at the beginning of the podcast. Is that a deal?
Works for me.
I'm in.
And we need to have Andrew Smith on that episode. That's what we're gonna do, Andrew. Get ready. So, all right. Well, we talked about the fun stuff. Now let's talk about an actual game. Wolves are playing Fulham this weekend. Paul, what time is it at?
It's a 9 a.m. kickoff Central Time on Saturday morning.
It's gonna be an interesting game. Fulham had a good start to the season. I do feel like those teams that just got promoted usually have a better first week. Let's remember Norwich City beat Man City several years ago in their first game back into the Premier League. So what are we thinking? Are there going to be any changes? Does Guedes start, Paul?
I think it goes back to potentially Wang's fitness. If he did have any type of strain, we're going to have to watch these training clips pretty intently all week to see who's featuring and who they're making prominent. Personally, I think that there's enough time to get him in and get him bedded in to start on Saturday. So I think they'll go for it, especially at home.
We need the dude who was ever hiding in the trees today
That
at
was brilliant.
Compton Park. We need Hoang updates from that dude.
But I love that the official Twitter account pointed to that in there. They said, here's some photos without a tree in front of it, which I thought was excellent. I love it when they make a nod to popular Twitter culture or the latest thing. I thought that was expertly played.
Again, Wolves social team, Gemma, I think his name's Josh that runs the Twitter account. They're brilliant. Absolutely. I mean, they are top notch, make it really fun to follow. So yeah, that was definitely a winning tweet today. Brian, what's your gut? Guedes starts, doesn't start?
I think he'll be on the bench to start. I think it's not quite enough time to get him like fully engaged in, but I think he'll be featuring off the bench. Everything else probably horses for courses.
Yeah. I'd ask if you would see any other changes, but who would actually be able to? Unless Moutinho's suddenly fit. I mean, that was the team we got, and they're all going to be playing another 85 minutes. Again.
Have they said when Semato's expected back? I was trying to look that up.
I don't know. Let's ask Travis Scott.
I think that was towards the end of August, but I think even then there's going to be definitely that he's going to need some minutes probably in the under 23s, at least a game or two, because he'll have effectively missed out a pre-season in terms of the game time minutes. So it's one thing getting fit and it's another thing getting match fit. So if it's the end of August for him being back on the training field, then it's probably 2 or 3 weeks away from starting.
Yeah, if we've learned anything from Johnny, don't throw him out there before they're 100% ready. Over under on the amount of subs Wolves use, I'm gonna set it at 2.5. Paul, over under?
Ooh, under. I'd take 2 at the very most.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, definitely under.
That's what I think. I think Guedes, Hoang, that'll be one. I don't know the other one. If they have a lead, I feel like, and this is one reason I was a little hesitant to give up Coady, because I feel like if they were playing with a lead, they could have brought in Coady at any point on games and switched to a back five. I guess now Bali might fill that role or somebody. I don't know. So I think if they do have the lead, I could see a second change, but we're not going to get close to that 5 subs anytime soon. In fact, Paul, over under out of 38 games, the number of times that Wolves use 5 subs, I will set it at 8.
Over by not a lot. I just think we hopefully I'll be positive and think that we are going to have some depth. It won't be. I don't think we're going to have a huge. We're not going to have a replacement bench in terms of a player for every position. But I think we'll get into a few games, hopefully, that we win comfortably, and it's a chance to blood some of the youngsters. So I'll be positive.
Brian?
I just want to say under. I was trying to think if how often teams do that in like MLS, where they have 5 subs. And of the games I've watched, I'm not sure that they always use the 5, but I was mostly going to insert a joke of, well, no, now that Guedes is here, we'll just score 5 goals a game and then we'll just bring in all the 19-year-olds. But no, I think they'll probably use 3 or 4 most of the games, maybe.
Yeah, because even though you have 5 subs, you have to use them. You can only use them in 3 separate times, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Is that the rule? Yeah. So unless they're wasting time at an end of a game, then I think, you're pulling out. That's if you have like a 3-0 lead or 3-1 lead. I don't know. I would say under. I'll be shocked if they use the 5 very often. All right, score predictions. Alex, I'll start off with you. What's your prediction for the game this weekend?
I'll say 1-1. We'll go for a draw this week.
Okay. Brian?
Opening day at home, optimistic 2-1. 2-1 Wolves win.
Okay. Paul?
I think it'll still take another week or so to find our mojo. So I'm going for a draw, but an entertaining one at 2-2.
I choose violence. So I'm going to say 1-1, but I think Fulham's goal will come off of a header with like 10 minutes to go by Paulina.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
no.
cruel. Or Saw punches a dude in the face again, and like, you almost got penned in this one. You probably should have.
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be something stupid. Paul, any more no stupid questions?
We had a bunch this week, so we'll bring these to an end with a couple more. But just as a reminder for the listeners, it's the part of the show where it is up to you to get in touch and ask us anything that you want about the Wolves, be it on the playing side, be it Wolverhampton as a city, be it history, you name it, get in touch. Our socials, you can do it on Twitter, which is at WLWpod. You can also do it through our Facebook page, or you can use email, which is hello@wholelotofwolves.com. 2 more off Twitter, and one is for more you guys that are the MLS fans. It is from our good friend Todd DeWitt, and he asks, you have been given the task to organize a tournament between 2 MLS teams and 2 EPL teams. Which teams do you pick to provide the most entertaining tournament, and which stadium do they play in?
I'm just going to start with, we've already seen this once in Charlotte, where Charlotte beat Chelsea in front of 45,000 people that went ballistic. It was amazing, and we should do it again. On a more serious note, I would love to see a Tottenham LAFC derby. Have the Gareth Bale derby would be a lot of fun. And anytime you go to Seattle, that place is mental and absolutely nuts. They actually pack out their NFL stadium every week. So anytime you have Seattle coming in, would be a good time. So any of those would be great fits for me.
I know Todd's still loving the fact of Minnesota's big win over Everton, which I'm sure is where he thought of this big question. I would also have to say, if we got to choose 2 MLS teams, I think it's got to be LAFC. If it's about selling tickets, then it would be LA Galaxy as well. If it was about competitiveness, it would be Seattle. I think the games would be in Seattle if we were choosing a US venue. There's a reason Seattle got a World Cup thing, and it was no question, and it's because of the fans and the stadium out there. Who would be the 2 EPL teams? If we're wanting the best games, it would probably be, I think Tottenham's a good one. And then the second one, I would probably say West Ham or a Newcastle. I want to say Manchester United, just because, I would love to see the fans just, completely melt down if they lost to an MLS team.
That'd be amazing.
But I think if we're looking for competitiveness, and I still think the 2 EPL teams would win fairly easily, but yeah, I could see, Tottenham tends to play down to their competition. West Ham's like one of those above average EPL teams, so I could see that.
Fun.
And the last stupid question of the evening, it's on Twitter. It is from a guy, Alex Patakis. Yeah, that's it. Alex, what is it you wanted to ask?
Oh, I this one was for Josh. So the first thing I do when Wolves make a signing is I go and I open my FIFA career and I make that same signing to see what the team looks like in FIFA. And I was just thinking of how crazy it is and if I'm the only person who thinks about these things, but I'm hoping Josh does too, that Ruben Neves has like the same face scan that he had when he was like originally signed for the championship. The guy is strikingly handsome. Like the game does not do him justice.
No, it really
This
doesn't.
This is big club bias in the biggest way, because every other like major, the big six teams, players are updated like every year. They get new tattoos. It's in the game. Ruben Neves is like one of the best looking guys in the Premier League. FIFA needs to show this. So that's, I was going to ask if I was the only one who thought about it. That was my question.
No, you're not. You're not. I am absolutely. I think about that too. In fact, it's funny you say you immediately go on career mode and put it on there. So I usually Guedes, I get on my career quite often. And he's good because he's got the, the big ears. So, you can adds a little character to it. One of my favorite things to do is when there's a rumor, I go to sofifa.com and look him up.
I do the same thing because there's so many players and you don't really know anything about them. And is it perfect? No, but it could tell you something really quick, like, oh, that guy's really fast, or oh no, that guy's pretty strong, or oh no, that guy's a good dribbler, just enough so you can kind of ground a mild mental picture without combing through hundreds of YouTube videos to figure out whether someone's actually adequate or not.
Yeah, I feel like that's better than highlight reels sometimes.
Yeah, I like that one for trying to find ideas for players who are not super duper good, but are helpful. Like this is the one thing I feel like we are missing, and I think we're going to be missing in this window, is the replacement of the Marcel type, the guy who is like, he can come in for 2 or 3 games, not embarrass himself, but also he may not be amazing, but he'll just be competent. Or I refer to it as the quote Will Hughes model. Just good enough to be out there, but he's not going to cover yourself.
That's a great
you're not going to
point.
embarrass yourself.
That's a great point. Yeah, man, it still all revolves around FIFA, Alex. I'm with you.
Or was it now EAFC? Is that what the new version's going to be?
I think it's still one more year of FIFA, and then it's EAFC.
Year.
Yeah, they'll come up with something. They'll make a deal. FIFA's money hungry. I don't see that coming out as EAFC.
Billions of dollars, literally hundreds of millions of copies sold every year, maybe 1 billion copies sold every year. They're going to walk away from that money.
Yeah, no, they're not. Paul, we've been getting some feedback since you announced last week about the excitement of an unofficial meetup here in H-Town. Why don't you tell us about it some more?
Most definitely. Lots of interest, lots of hand raisers, including a gentleman on this very call. So, Brian, hope you're looking forward to meeting everyone when you come to Houston.
Very much so. I was very excited as soon as I saw you guys announced it. I'm really excited to meet you guys in person.
We are going to be releasing our formal plans, hopefully later on this week up until the weekend, so we get a good idea of numbers and what people can expect. But I will give you and the listeners a sneak peek on the Friday evening. We'll be convening in the early part of the evening at Fight Club Houston, which is a darts themed bar. So plans to be entertaining. Who knows? We could have a USA international tournament style on the dartboard, maybe. So it's something on those lines.
I ain't facing you. I know you. I know you met your wife because you went to a dart tournament in Vegas.
Yeah, a little bit. On the Saturday, obviously we've got the game to plan around. We will be finalizing a different venue based on the numbers that we are expecting. So based on these plans, we're going to be shooting for the downtown, or as Houston knows it, maybe the east side of downtown. So if you're looking into accommodation options, that is where the major concentration of activities will be, because after the game, you'll have free time for the remainder of the Saturday. There's a whole bunch of things touristy to do in Houston. The activities and the plans that we're making are designed to be pretty family friendly. So if you are bringing the fam, bringing a significant other, there's lots to do in Houston. And then on the Saturday evening, we will start off by meeting at a bar which is very near opposite the Houston Dynamo Stadium. It is a soccer themed bar called Pitch 25. And then we'll be making our way to a Astros themed brewery called Eighth Wonder, and then finishing in a arcade style bar called Cidercade, which has a good selection of ciders. So again, very family friendly. If you're thinking about bringing the family, we definitely encourage that. It's not going to be restricted in any ways in terms of adults only or anything like that. So we do want to be as inclusive as possible to everyone thinking of making the trip. So we're very much looking forward to it, and we'll be announcing those further details in due course.
And you can reach out to us online once now that Paul's kind of getting the itinerary, figuring out best places to stay. We can kind of tell you the areas that are good and areas to avoid, areas that'll be a little more expensive. So yeah, it's a good time. There's not the mass transit system that they have in Chicago, in Houston, I will tell you. So make sure your Uber credit card's all on there. But luckily, Paul and I have pretty decent sized cars, so we can probably be, piling some people in our car too.
Yeah, that's right. We'll definitely be looking to be as flexible as possible if people are coming into the two main airports. So if you're willing to share arrival times and meeting up with people, we'll definitely be doing that. And as Josh mentioned, he lives further north, so it could serve Bush pretty well. I'd be certainly glad to coordinate if the arrivals around the same time at Hobby, which is towards the south and a big southwest hub in terms of the airport infrastructure. So yeah, we will definitely take care of those that are making the trip.
I don't want to brag, but I am a platinum Uber driver, so.
So that brings this week's show to an end. We are going to be back same time, same place with a review of the Fulham game on the weekend, and then a look ahead to what will be the trickiest clash potentially of the start to the season, which is away at Tottenham the following week. So in the meantime, I think they listened to us last week where I kind of asked for a striker. I'll set up for Guedes, but come on, Jeff, keep the new players coming and up the mighty Wolves.